multimedia series talking all things wrestling across North Jersey. This is Season 8, Episode 3, and we have a lot to talk about this week as we will go in-depth on the recently completed BCCA George Jockish Holiday Tournament held over the week, last year, as it were, at Hackensack High School. I am Corey Doviak, being joined by my trusty co-host, Kenny Sirajan. What's going on, Kenny?
Excited. You guys did a great job. I was on the men, so I can't wait to talk about the tournament.
Yes, and I mentioned Kenny first, which is probably a mistake this week because he's the only guy on the air this week, well, except for Donnie Spataro. But Kenny was the only guy not in attendance at the BCCA George Jockish Holiday Tournament. But we did pick up the slack with the likes of Tom Gallione, the head coach of the Pascack Valley Wrestling Team. What's going on, Tommy?
What's up, Corey? It was good to see you, left the Poli tournament for a day and came over to watch some wrestling.
Tom, I don't know if you've heard, but Jeff Jasper is going for his 1,000th win.
I have seen that before.
So we did take a slight vacation from all things Indians basketball, and we were in attendance at Hackensack High School with the likes of Ryan Burdett, the assistant coach of the North Bergen Bruins, the thorn in the side of the Bergen County de facto county championship. What's going on, Ryan?
What's up, Corey? How are you?
I'm doing well. Looking forward to getting your perspective on this and also the perspective of the Cardinal of Bergen County Wrestling, the guy who got me my first interview on Friday and got me up and moving here so we can play them later on the show. He is Westwood assistant coach Mike Mazzeo. What's up, At?
Happy New Year, Corey. And, you said before that Donnie wasn't there, but, he kind of was there because my phone, non-stop messages. For a guy who couldn't go to the tournament, he sure wanted to know everything that was going on. So he wasn't there in person, but he was there electronically, all kinds of updates for Mr. Spataro all weekend.
Yes. You can take the BCCA George Jockish Holiday Tournament. You can take Donnie out of it, but you can't take the tournament out of Donnie. Donnie, of course, is the assistant coach of the Bergen Catholic wrestling program. He is the Pope of Bergen County Wrestling, and he joins us as the final member of our panel. What's up, Donnie, here a couple hours before takeoff for the Doc Buchanan Tournament out in California?
Gentlemen, how are you? Corey, you made my day explaining to people out there that it's the George Jockish Holiday Tournament. No word county in there. Holiday Tournament.
Right.
And, Mike was helping me out. I was trying to look on Track Wrestling for signals and telegraph messages. It's a form of communication to find out results on the tournament that's always up on technology. So the smoke signals pretty much worked. It was pretty good.
Donnie Spataro following the action via carrier pigeon. We have, let's get into it here because, like I mentioned, most of us were there, most of us intimately involved. And I'm going to start right with the first match of the opening round, 126 pounds. Now, 120 was the quote-unquote marquee matchup in the finals, and that was Sammy Alvarez of St. Joe's against Kyle Kaiser from Paramus, which meant that the opening bout of the evening went at 126 pounds. And it was good news for one of our panel members. So let's start with you, At Trent Furman, first Westwood County champion since
2006, when it was done by Anthony Lasanti. So yeah, it's been 10 years. It was Paul's first county champ as a head coach. So let's give kudos to him. I know it was something that he's always, it's one of those things as a coach. You want to have a county champ. So he's got himself a George Jockish Holiday Tournament championship.
Are you all right with that, Donnie? We did mention county champion a couple times.
Beautiful. That's perfect. Perfect.
Well, everyone in the county is invited. Everyone's invited, just not everybody chooses to go. I mean, I don't want to diminish a tournament because someone didn't want to go.
That's right.
And if
it was a real county tournament, we would be forced to go. We'd have no choice. But since it's not a real county tournament and it's a holiday tournament, Makes a big difference.
Donnie, don't worry about it. None of your guys are from the county anyway.
So they have a few this year. Come on now. There's a couple of guys at Bergen Catholic that live somewhere within a 20-minute, half-hour radius of Bergen Catholic.
9 starters from Bergen County.
Boy, this show's on fire tonight.
9 starters.
Right, 9 starters from Bergen County. Thank you.
How many?
That means 9 starters.
Okay. That's more than half.
Throughout the last 10 years? Or?
No.
It's the high water mark for the last decade, but that's okay. We won't go into that.
All right, come on. He's out here alone. He's got to fly tomorrow.
He's got to fly tomorrow. He's on the turnpike. He's doing us a solid. All right, let's get back to Trent Furman. 1-0 in the final. 1-0 in the final in a great match against Gianni Manganelli from Dumont. A tough for your kid, and he really pulled through there in the end.
He did. He had a really good match. I thought it was, I actually said to somebody before the match, I wouldn't be surprised if this was a 1-0 match. Because right before it, we were just really focused on trying to minimize Gianni's attacks. Because if you watch him throughout the tournament, he scored a lot of points on his feet. He has a couple of big moves. He's a very strong kid. So we really were trying to neutralize. And I felt like the more points that got scored, the more it was going to be in their favor. And look, Trent rose to the occasion. He was the top seed, and I think it sort of meant something to him to start on top and finish on top, and that's what he did. So we're proud of him, and I think he had a very, very good tournament. He won the opening season tournament, and we know there were a few spots where he didn't wrestle quite like a county champ that opening weekend, but that's why you start start the season with something that's not enormously important, because you're getting ready to do something big in a couple of weeks. So we're very, very happy that things came together for Mr. Furman this weekend, no doubt.
And he was happy, too, as you will hear in this interview I got with Trent Furman after the 126-pound final.
Just talk about that match. I mean, no room to spare. What were you able to do?
Just trying to, wrestle my match.
What is your match? What do you consider your match?
Take him down the first period, then, get out on bottom, and then, ride him out and turn him on top.
Just talk about this experience, you being the first guy out there, first championship match of the night.
Usually I don't like wrestling first, just something about it, like going 2 or 3. So, but first a different experience, but got the job done.
How about coming down the stretch of that match, knowing you only had the 1-point lead and just trying to protect it against a real good kid?
Yeah, try to get the takedown towards the end of the second period, but didn't get him. Then I knew I just had to ride him out or try and turn him when he chose bottom. So I was able to do that.
Did you think about before coming into this tournament what it would mean to win a Bergen County championship, and is it different now that it's actually done?
I didn't know what seed I was going to be or how the tournament was going to progress. I just had to go out there one match at a time and just win.
All right, now we do the wrestling show on NorthJerseySports.com. Mike Att, one of your coaches, is one of our co-hosts. Give us a good story about Mike Att that we can use to embarrass him on the show.
I don't really have any.
Wow, he must be a good coach then.
Yeah.
All right, good stuff there with Trent Furman. Good stuff for the Westwood Cardinals. They got it rolling there in the first final match of the evening of the holiday tournament. So Westwood first county champs since 2006, and then it was on to 132 pounds. Now, Kenny, how do you want to do this? Do you want to go? I don't know if we have to go match by match. We can. You're the pilot.
I don't really want to go match by match. I do want to hit a couple things before I get into the questions that you guys love so much. I do want to talk to Ryan, because his guy was in the 132 final. I want to talk to him about his guy, and I want to talk to Tommy about his guy. So we will go to 132, where Sgambellone of St. Joe's beat Yusef Salem of North Bergen. Tell us a little bit about that match, Ryan.
Yusef is was a returning county champ from last year. Got off to a slow start.
Is that Hudson County champ or Bergen County champ? Which county champ was he?
He would get a holiday award, as would most of the Catholic schools, but the other guys would get county awards. But so Yusef is a returning county champion. This year he came in, obviously got to the final. Just couldn't, he didn't fire off his shots like he normally does. Stefano Sgambellone had great defense. Credit to him for scouting Yusef. I don't think Yusef got to his game plan, and we got shut down a little bit. Made it to overtime. And not scoring in the first overtime, I think, is where the match kind of turned. Once we went on the mat and them scoring the first point, knowing that we had to get out from bottom, we didn't. And from there, we cut them. We didn't feel Youssef would be able to ride for 2 30-second periods in a row. So we cut them, and, didn't work out. We lost by 1. I think Youssef will bounce back from this. I think you might see him a little bit lighter in the future. But for now, it was a good match, and hats off to Stefano. Did a nice job defending Youssef the entire match, and I think that's how he won it on defense.
Yeah, it's true, and a lot of what you said, you get the opposite view here, because I got the interview with Stefano Sgambellone from St. Joseph Regional after his 5-4 overtime win over your guy, Rye. Let's take a quick listen. Here's Stefano Sgambellone.
So, that's just a gut check. Overtime in the county final. Just talk about how you pulled that out.
This is just dug deep, just telling myself before the match, be the dog, get the dog intensity, just be the dog, 6 minutes hard. That's it. It went more than 6 minutes, but yeah, helped,
So what was it? I was looking at it was an escape in the first overtime, is that what it was?
No. In the first overtime, I held him down for 30 seconds.
So you wrote him out.
And then he thought, he didn't think, he thought it was a better strategic plan to let me up on my feet so he could take me down, because in the third period, prior to overtime, he took me on twice. So I guess, yeah.
All right, Kenny, good stuff there. That's 132. Where do we go from here?
We're going to jump, and we'll finish one of our co-hosts. Tommy, you had Tom Cellini against Delara in the finals. Tommy, it was a hard luck at the end of last year when he broke his fingers. He was on a streak, and he started a streak again this year. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the match against Delara?
Yeah, Tommy's been wrestling well all year. Went into the match against Delara, who's tough. He's a tough 60-pounder, very thick, tough to shoot on. So kind of strategy was to not go underneath him as much. And, I thought Tommy did a real nice job in the first period. He got out right away in the second, and he was up 1-0. And then he kind of got into a little bit of a scramble situation towards midway tail end of the second, and Delara's behind him, and Tommy was, going to hit like a standing switch. Couldn't really free himself, and then just before they went out of bounds, Delara got the takedown. So he kind of, was down a little bit. Delara got out in the third, and Tommy was, attacking, but he just couldn't really get to his legs, and then, kind of shot off a low single off a restart with just under a minute left. Delara kind of saw it coming and, scooted around for the final 2 to make it 5-1. But overall, it was a good tournament, and it was a good match for him. Like you said, the season ended short last year, and I thought this was a good test and, give him a little confidence booster that he feels he's right there with, some of the better kids in his weight class in the state. So, overall, he's off to a good start this year.
And I should note that Delara is one of the, you say he's nice and thick. He's one of those guys from Hasbrouck Heights who always wrestled tough. Do we have any tape on Delara, Tommy?
I don't. I missed him. But if you go to 170, the other Hasbrouck Heights champion, I could certainly give you some of that.
Yeah, let's go to O'Malley, who's been hanging around. He's following his brother, and now he looks like ready to take the mantle. O'Malley won at 170. He made your decision. Gabe Robles out of where's Gabe now? Northern Highlands.
Yep.
Aficionados will get that.
Sorry.
So let's hear from O'Malley. It was probably the one of the 2 most lopsided victories. That one in the 182 bouts, and Babin at 106. So let's go to O'Malley from Hasbrouck Heights.
All right, now set it up by saying this. You can tell that I am so out of my depth in this interview because Michael O'Malley is got into the specifics of wrestling. And you know what happens to me. The eyes start rolling back. I asked him what was working for him, and he started naming all these things. So rather than try to keep up with him, let's have him speak the words himself. Here is Michael O'Malley after winning the 170-pound championship at the BCCA tournament.
It's never really easy. Competition's always tough, no matter who it is. And you just got to go out there and wrestle hard and do what you know. Yeah.
I just thought you're being aggressive all night tonight, looking for the back points, just looking to keep scoring. Just talk about that approach where some guys might choose to wrestle defensively in a big match like this.
Yeah, when I go into a match, I don't really try to hype myself up too much, kind of going slow rolling. And whatever comes to me, I get. And when it's there, I take it, and I just keep adding to it and building off it. And it's like chain wrestling, one after the other after the other.
What was working for you tonight?
I mean, overall, the whole tournament was like official tilt was mostly working in the Russian. I mean, the Russian was working too in this match too, but it was mainly my underhook pitch single, which is working the best.
So how do you think this sets you up? I mean, I'm sure you got big goals for this season, both team-wise and individually. Just talk about, it's a big confidence builder. It's a big tournament early in the season, biggest one yet of the year.
So far, Coming out of here, I hope to bring a lot of motivation to the team. Hopefully it's like a team-building milestone, so the team gets better as a whole. Looking at me, they're like, oh, he took first, maybe I can get first. And the counties build off that. And I think in the long run, it's my goal for states is to win, obviously. I've came close a few times.
All right, good stuff there with Michael O'Malley. Kenny, lead us along.
I'm turning it over to our experts. So I'm going to ask first Tommy, then Mike, then Ryan. What match did you see as the toughest final? What bout did you enjoy the most? Tommy?
I mean, in all honesty, I think one of the most exciting ones was, the 132-pound final that Ryan was talking about before between Youssef and Sgambellone from St. Joe's. I mean, it was as exciting a match as it could come by, and even all right to the end. Even like Ryan mentioned, they let him Sgambellone up in the final 30 seconds there, and Youssef kept attacking, and just on the edge of your seat, waiting to see if he was going to get the takedown to win it. That was really a really exciting match. It was a lot of fun to watch.
Ryan, what do you got for me?
I think right up from that, I think the 138 final with Luke Mazzeo and Craig Mano. I think Mano's, he's a junior now at St. Joe's. He's finally in a spot where he's going to get to wrestle every day, and he was very impressive. He didn't back down. Stall call late that earned Mazzeo a point, kind of decided the match. And I was very impressed with Mano, and it was just an exciting match to watch. And Mano's got a little brother coming up soon that's supposedly even better. So you're going to be hearing the name for a while.
And that's Mazzio's second title, correct, guys?
He won his second in a row. And it should be noted here, too, that, he was injured. I talked to Joe Mazzeo all of a sudden. Never on the show. I talked to him after he beat Tommy over there in Emerson. We had played the clip last week. This week, like we're old friends, I did another 8-minute interview with him. This time, I don't think we need to play it on this show, but there was a lot of good information exchanged here. And one of the things that he told me was that Luke hobbled off after his first-round state match last year. He won the match 10-3, tore a ligament in his knee, and wasn't really, Joe, the dad, was saying how important this was for Luke to be able to, really get the confidence back that he's fully healthy and that he can go out and beat some good wrestlers. He won 8-7 in the final, and I interviewed him when it was over. Here is Luke Mazzeo after winning the 138-pound weight class at the holiday tournament.
Yeah, so a little bit hairy there in the third period. He gave up the time two, and then just talk about what you were thinking down the stretch to get that one.
So as soon as he got that two, I knew how to get one. I had to put all my heart out, and I did it. And I'm doing this for my father and Coach Woods, my uncle, because I want to go out there every day, redeeming my father and my uncle losing in the state finals, getting ripped off. I had that in my mind every day. I look at that newspaper article in my room. I'm like, they got screwed over. I want to get it for them.
You almost had to escape right off the whistle after he got the reversal. I mean, so how about just not getting down on yourself? Because, it was close to the edge of the mat, whatever. He got the call.
I knew what I had to do, so I went out there and did it. I knew how to get out, so I put all my heart into it.
All right, that's Luke Mazzeo there. Kenny, your next question for our illustrious panel of North Jersey wrestling insiders.
I want Mike's match. What match? Don't pick Furman. Tell me what match not involving one of your kids did you find exciting, Mike?
Well, you know what? I'm going to go with 120. I kind of thought other people would because it was the marquee matchup of the night. And sometimes those don't work out. Sometimes don't wind up those matches that you think are going to be great. Sometimes they don't come through as exciting as you thought they were. But I thought Alvarez and Kaiser was a great match. I think that Kaiser looks really good and gave Alvarez a great test. But you just saw the athleticism and the poise and the mat sense that Alvarez has. And if there's any doubt that he's a fun wrestler to watch. I know he's ranked number 1 in the state. He's very entertaining, and you just feel like you were watching 2 state placers wrestle, right on the side of the mat, which was pretty cool. And I thought it was a great way for us to end the tournament. I feel like we ended on a high note with 2 high-level wrestlers really going at it, and I think it was good for the crowd. Nice 4-2 win for the great wrestler from Joe's.
Yeah.
What do you think the difference in the match was, Mike? What was the difference for Alvarez? His athleticism? I mean, was there any one point in the match, was he in control the whole way, or was Kaiser in the match till the very end?
It's a good question. I felt like he was in control, but there were a few times when Kaiser was close to scoring. Alvarez has a poise on the mat. You can tell he does not panic. He's very smart. I noticed towards the end of the match, they were in a wild scramble, and he looked like he was a little bit better positioned than Kaiser. He looked at the clock. He realized there's only like 15 seconds left, and I'm up by 2, and he literally just unhooked his leg and walked away. It basically was like, I don't need this takedown. He does. I'm going to get out of this whole scramble, and I'm just going to run the clock out. And I was like, wow, talk about mat sense for this kid. It was really a cool moment for somebody to just have the presence of, I don't need this takedown. The only shot he has right now is if I keep rolling around with him. Let me just get out of here and get my win.
Very good.
It's
Do we have him,
point, Mike. Hold on, I didn't get him because at the end, if anybody who knows me well knows that I'm always looking for the exit. So I was packed up and caught the end of it, wrote it down in my notebook, and I was out the door before he even got his medal. But that's the one thing I want to bring Donnie in here because we were talking a little bit off the air. They saved that match for the final. Obviously, it was the marquee match, but sometimes there were people milling about. A lot of people had left by that time. You and your program are involved with huge matches all the time. What are your feelings about saving quote-unquote best for last?
Well, we were talking off the air. A lot of tournament directors make that mistake thinking that if they hold that last marquee match that they really think everyone's going to be interested in, is that it's going to hold all the fans there. And it really doesn't, to tell you the truth. I mean, most people have been sitting here all day, just like any sporting event. They've had enough and they want to beat the crowd or go home. They'll listen to the results later on.
Yeah.
So I would say probably better idea if a tournament director has a marquee match is to have it somewhere in the middle of the tournament, not really the last match, because you're still taking that chance where a lot of people are going to leave and you're going to have an empty gym for that most important match. I think having it toward the middle of it would be the better idea.
Go ahead, Mike.
Well, I can tell you this, that first of all, we draw it out of the hat. It's randomly done. It doesn't really happen the way that Mr. Spataro is sort of making it sound like we picked that last match. It just happened that way. Just some luck that we got that really good match at the end. Me and Jack Riccardi met and drew out 126 as our starting match. But one of the reasons that tournament directors might want to do that...
You forgot to tell everyone, Mike, that all 14 sticks in the hat was 126. So go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
Oh, wink, wink, Donnie. No, things don't happen like that in West Jersey wrestling. So the truth is that we have had times when we look around and say, wow, the last 2 or 3 matches were going to be blowouts on paper, and there's no one here. And now these kids are winning a county title in front of like 150 people. So, yes, people do leave, but they're more likely to stay when you give them something good at the end.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
I
watched the match, and I watched the match with interest. I mean, I was curious, I definitely did watch it. It's just, I was there for a while and had some gear to pack up and all that stuff. You start doing it like third period starts. I'm like, all right, let me get going. Listen, I'm not the best wrestling guy in the world anyway, so that's I'm probably the wrong person to set the example.
All right. I want to get to the other things, but I got one question about a match that I have for you guys, and anyone can answer. At 285, the big boys, Seidel of St. Joe's was the presumptive favorite, and then all of a sudden we have Pastor of Demarest defeating him 5-4. I mean, was it a typical heavyweight match? I thought Seidel is supposed to be a little better movement tell me, somebody who really watched that one, can you give me a little insight into that match?
Anybody? I'll jump in if no one else does.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Mike.
It was, well, you know, when you look at that match on paper, I definitely thought that Saito was the guy. Being an established heavyweight, going to the States last year, being a real big heavyweight. And, you know, Pastor's come up from 220. And I just felt like the size would be a big issue. But, you know, it wound up being that it was a little bit more about technique. And, you know, there's a tone to a match. And I felt like Pastor didn't wrestle like a heavyweight. And if he was going to try to win this match 1-0, I feel like, you know, if they push each other around for 6 minutes, I feel like it would have went the other way. But, you know, it turns out that Pastor came out shooting, came out throwing, believe it or not, and opened the match up with a big throw to the back and did enough to win the match at the end. So it was actually a very busy match. And 5-4, it felt like it was even more than that at times because there really was a lot of wrestling for the 6 minutes, you know, especially considering we have at least one of those guys was a really, like, big, like, prototypical heavyweight. And they'll probably go again, and who knows what'll happen. You know, I think it's sometimes hard to tell what's going to happen later in the year, but it was great to see the heavyweights really go at it. And, of course, everybody likes a little upset here and there. So the littler guy won. They're both enormous, but the littler guy won.
Yeah, but, Mike, you know what? Actually, the last 4 minutes were action-packed. The first 4, I was surprised that there wasn't more, you know, offense. Because I talked to, and I'm not saying this out of my own expertise, I talked to Bailey Pastor.
Obviously, because the matches are only 6 minutes, but that's okay.
What I say, the last 4 minutes were action-packed. The first 2, all right, whatever. I'm just learning the sport, Ken. I mean, what is those things they wear on their heads? But
cut the guy a break.
I talked to Bailey Pastor after the match. And first of all, Bailey Pastor is one of the nicest kids you're going to meet. Actually, everybody I talked to, I shouldn't say that. But Bailey Pastor, I covered during the football season. I've interviewed him a couple of times. And he was just very excited, not only because for himself, but also, I mean, he was one of the guys most that I spoke to who was really in tune with the history of the tournament, what it meant to be a BCCA George Jockish Holiday champion. So here is my interview with Bailey Pastor.
Just talk about how that feels.
You know, so athletically, going into my senior year, I had 2 goals, and one was to win the state football title, and that fell through. So I'm just trying to accomplish everything in wrestling. So for me to win this for both myself and my football team and my coaches and everyone who's come before me is really an honor.
Just talk about the match. I mean, first, I don't want to say the first period was boring, but the first period was a little boring. Then you guys got into it on the ground in the second and hanging on in the third. So just talk about the back and forth with you guys.
Yeah, so he's a tough kid. He's a lot bigger than me. I'm a little undersized for a heavyweight, and he's a pretty good size. So I was having trouble working my offense because I couldn't get any of my any of my setups. Don't want to give away too much, but I'll leave it at that. So. And so I was and I knew he's actually very good on his feet.
Yeah.
So I knew I just had to play it safe. So that was great.
How key was that blood time with 16 seconds left to go? You get your wind a little bit. Him too. I mean, it was the same on both sides. But.
You know, I could have kept going those last 16 seconds, but it was nice not having to suck wind, especially because I'm a little sick.
Yeah, and you know, just forget this match. The rest of it. I mean, you know, King. I don't know what you did in the semifinals, but you know, you had a real good 2 days here. I mean, that's got to give you confidence going forward.
Yeah, it means a lot. I've always loved this tournament ever since when I was a sophomore. I actually placed 4th here, and ever since then I've always loved this tournament.
And what was last year? What did you do last year?
I got 5th last year actually, and to win this tournament and join the club of county champs from Demarest, you know, guys like Owen Mayer, Anthony Rubinetti, it's really a blessing and an honor to be in the same club as them.
All right, interesting stuff there with Bailey Pastor. And, you know, for the sake of brevity on this edition of the Wrestling Show, I'm going to empty out the old recorder here and play the other interviews that I got. I'll play them in quick succession. First, 2-time champion now, Dylan Cedeno, the sophomore from Fairlawn, 113 pounds. He ripped his way through the tournament, and here is what he had to say after his victory at 113.
So I interviewed you after last year. One, how to feel good. How does it feel?
Oh, it's great to come out here and repeat. one of the goals coming into the season was obviously become a 2-time county champ. Thrilled that was able to be accomplished today.
How much is 4-time county champ on your mind?
4-time county champ has a nice ring to it. Obviously, you got to take it one step at a time. Right now, we got to get through the rest of the season, one step, one match at a time, and we wait until next year for a chance to do that again. But I'm going to make sure I'm ready to go, and when time comes, I'll be ready to look for number 3.
And dominant in this tournament the last couple of days. Just talk about the effort. I mean, what was it? Pin, and then here it was either pin or tech fall, whichever one came. So just this is a great last 2 days.
On my mind, just had a relentless attitude, pursue, score as many points as possible. Thank you. Keep scoring, pedal to the metal, and don't stop until the match ends.
All right, good stuff there with Dylan Cedeno. Keeping on the interview track, 152-pound champion is Jonah Schechtman from Emerson Park Ridge, and I caught up with him after his victory.
Your initial thoughts after winning a Bergen County championship? That's a good smile.
Well, it's pretty good, of course. I never really thought it would come true. Usually, like a little kid watching the tournament, you look up to everyone that's here. And now finally being one of those kids that are there is actually a pretty cool experience.
So how did it feel, as you just said, you've thought about it a zillion times in your life. How did it feel to actually take the mat with a championship? How about controlling those nerves and getting your breathing down and trying to, figure it out?
Well, so far, I've never really been too, nervous whenever, wrestling. Never, had those feelings. A lot of people do. I don't know. I've never had those feelings before.
You didn't have them tonight either?
No, I wasn't nervous at all.
Cool. How about talk about the match itself? 4-2, good opponent, all that stuff. I mean, what was the key to getting this done?
Oh, yeah. He's my wrestling partner. We practice every Tuesday and Thursday, and so he knows what I do, but I also know what he does. So it was a pretty defensive match we had. And he had to try and do stuff in order to, actually do something to score in that match.
All right, Jonah Schechtman right there. And the last bit of tape that I have to play for this edition of The Wrestling Show is another 2-time champion. He is on the front of NorthJerseySports.com. He is our logo for The Wrestling Show this year. Don Bosco Prep's Peter Acciardi. Here he is after his win at 220 pounds.
Congratulations. Second time.
Yeah, second time.
Just talk about that. I mean, to win one is good. How does 2 feel?
It feels good. Worked so hard for the summer. And, it's better than the first one, obviously. So.
And a great run through the whole tournament. Yeah. Dominant pretty much all the way through. 19-7 in the final against a good kid. Yeah. Just, what was working for you here last week?
I was just working on my shots. Keep going on my shots. Keep getting gassed out because I didn't get a lot of competitive matches, I guess. And to keep the motor going and for more for the season.
I mean, sometimes in the upper weights, you don't see kids staying aggressive. I mean, I think that's probably one of your strengths.
Yeah.
Trying to pile up points.
And I'm thankful for my coaches for doing that. My club coaches, my team coaches. Very thankful for that.
All right, Kenny, that's all I got as far as audio is concerned. Where do you want to go from here?
I want to get to the teams, but I got one question.
And now it is time for the segment that is sweeping the high school wrestling world. A segment so confounding, so creative, and so calculated that it often leaves our panel speechless or pleading the fifth. It's Ken Sarajan's Coach's Question of the Week.
Who do you see as upper-coming kids that we saw maybe for the first time or hadn't noticed in the tournament that we should be watching, that this may be a year where they break out and make it to the state tournament? So Ryan, Mike, and then Tommy, tell me who you see and where they're from and what we should look for.
Well, I already mentioned Mano from St. Joe's. The 2 other guys I'd mention is Antonio Effete from Old Japan. He was very impressive. He ended up finishing 3rd at 113 pounds. He was close to going to the finals. He had a nice match with the Paramus 113 in the semi. He's tough. He's getting better. I remember him last year. Just seems like he's jumped a couple levels. And then also the 132 from Westwood, Zach Harris, always seems to find himself in these close matches, and numerous times I've seen him gut out wins in the last, 10, 20 seconds. It just seems like he's always hanging around, and he's got the exact makeup of a wrestler that you want come district and region time. He's gonna win those big matches because he's been in them already, and he's always finds a way to win. So I was very impressed with Zach Harris and his effort.
2 good ones. Tommy?
Yeah, I was really impressed with Mike's 106-pounder. I think it's Ethan Fernandez. I think he put together a nice tournament, and very impressive to watch early on in his career. I know he's had some nice wins in their dual meets and stuff like that. So I think there's a name that people will be hearing a lot about down the line. Another surprise you see, not a surprise, but you get you talk about 120 and how loaded that weight class is. But I think it's what's his name, Will Grader from Don Bosco. He had a good win in the third place match against Logan Mazzeo, who almost had Alvarez on the ropes. He had a very questionable takedown call in the semifinal match against Alvarez. So then Grader comes back and beats Mazzeo 3-0. So I think there's a name that obviously people will have heard about before, but all of a sudden you don't realize when kids are on different teams and they're bouncing around here and there. But there's a kid that people will see later on in the year.
Tommy, how about one from your team that maybe outperformed what you thought?
I think our 120-pounder is tough. Tyler Pizzi, I think he plays fifth. I think he's a kid that will be in the mix. He's wrestled a lot of top kids tough so far this year. I think he's a kid that people will hear about later in the year. And then I think our 82-pounder, a lot of people know about, but I was very impressed with the way Casey Lewis wrestled Garrett Beam from
St.
Joe's this weekend in the semifinals. He lost 4-0. He was in on a lot of takedowns. I think he wrestled Beam real tough, and Beam was a state 8th place finisher last year, so that was a good thing to see. So
yeah,
those
Beam went on
two
to
of my
win the
guys.
tournament too. This tournament, which we didn't
Mike.
mention. How about you, Ed?
Mike?
I have two guys for you. Yeah, we'll stay up top for a little while here. I have two guys that stood out to me that I did not know anything about. One is Ivan Jones from Fort Lee. I believe he was, I think, from Leonia transferred. Not positive, but I never heard of him before. And I watched him wrestle a little bit, and I was like, wow, he looks like he's a talented kid. And he wound up having a really nice tournament, took third place. His consolation win over Jackson Downey was kind of impressive. And he's got a nice little future. He's definitely jumping up a little bit. And an interesting story is Jack Swords from Don Bosco, the heavyweight, took fourth in the tournament in just his fourth week of wrestling.
Wow.
The story from him is supposedly that he got cut from basketball or decided late to come out for wrestling just to kind of help the team, and is apparently picking things up pretty quickly. He's a really big guy. He's got football linemen written all over him. And if you can do fourth in the county after only a few weeks, imagine what you're going to do in the whole season. So he could be someone to watch down the road in February, March. You never know.
How about a guy? We've mentioned a lot of Westwood guys tonight, but anybody that we overlooked that had a sneaky good tournament? I would say that
a lot of guys have been talked about already. I would say that it's interesting to see our 220-pounder Benny Dada, who held the lead over Karsich until the very end, and he's a relatively new wrestler. He hasn't wrestled, all the recreation level wrestling that other guys have had. I think that once he gets that kind of big match sense, you need to have that wrestling IQ. Once he gets that far down, the talent's there, the drive is there, and he's close. He's close. Definitely got to watch.
And Ryan, I didn't ask you that question too. How about a North Bergen kid that might have outperformed?
160, Ray Urquiza. He's just finally getting some varsity action. He was kind of stuck behind a couple guys, and in his first big tournament, he took 7th. So I didn't think he would place. He kind of snuck in there, so he did a nice job.
Good. All right, Kenny.
You're 26-pounder too, Ryan. He's a talented kid.
Oh, yeah. He's good. I kind of look at him as more well-known because he was known on the rec circuit. Right. But, yes, the 26-pounder is very tough. Justin Cantor, he's the brother of Jeff Rivera from a couple years ago, who's pretty good for us. So Justin Cantor had a nice tournament. His 2 losses were to the boys that took 3rd and 4th. He lost to Seta from St. Joe's, and he lost to Marowski from Old Japan. And those were both close 2-point losses. So he's right there. Yeah. Unfortunately, the way he got caught up in the bracket, it was unforgiving. But I think he's just as good as anybody there, 3rd through 8th.
Cool. All right. If we go to the teams, First of all, Don Bosco was the champ over Emerson Park Ridge, and I do note that real quickly they had 2 head-to-heads. At 95, Chaconis beat Lewis, and at 220, Acciardi major decisions Karsich. But Emerson Park Ridge was second, St. Joe's third, and let's give some props to the teams that we've picked this year. We got Westwood came in fourth, Fairlawn fifth, and Tommy's Pascagoula Valley Indians came in sixth, ahead of Paramus and Riverdale, and then Highlands, Garfield rounding out the top 10 with Heights. And the other thing I want to note and ask you guys about, first of all, congratulations to both Mike and Tommy, because their teams won their group titles, so they got some championships there. But tell me what teams you saw that you thought we should be watching the rest. Now, I know there's a difference between tournament teams and dual meet teams, but what do you guys see as teams that we hadn't talked about that you were impressed with this weekend? I'll start with Ryan, then Tommy, then Mike.
I'd say the one team that we didn't really talk about that did a little bit better than I had imagined would be Garfield, and they had a bunch of individuals, so obviously in the holiday tournament, that worked out well. I can't speak for them as far as the dual team yet. We'll have to see where the year takes us, but they got Josh Ferrier back at 132. He was real impressive. He made the semis before he had a default out with a pretty nasty knee injury. And I think Garfield was a nice little team. And again, we'll see if they have those second and third level guys to carry them through a dual season. But there was 7 or 8 individuals that you kept seeing around the mat all day. So Garfield was my team that kind of rose above what I expected.
Tommy?
Yeah, I think Garfield was one of them. I think Riverdale was another one that, Riverdale had a lot of, they lost a lot last year to graduation, but they still had, I think they had 4 kids place. They still have Callancy, who's tough. Kind of similar to what Ryan said regarding Riverdale. I don't know how they'll shake out when it comes to dual meet season, but they had 4 kids in the medal rounds, and I know they had 1 or 2 lose just the round right before. So they could have easily had 5 or 6, and which was, I thought, with what they lost, some of what they lost last year was a good showing for them early on.
Mike,
you know what? I want to go with Saddlebrook, because I wouldn't have picked Saddlebrook as being a team that was going to be, really, they took 13th in the tournament. They really weren't on my radar at all, to be honest. And if you watch them throughout the tournament, even some of the wrestlers that lost and didn't place, I felt like they were wrestling with a purpose, and I felt like it seems like they have a decent dual match team. They seem like they're putting out a pretty decent kid at every weight class to kind of, balance out the couple of, more well-known wrestlers. Limitola obviously is their best guy. They have 3 or 4 top guys, but I really felt like they had some more depth than I thought, and I kind of expect Saddlebrook to have a pretty good dual match season.
Yeah, C.J. Limitola did make the final at 106 pounds, less than Nick Babin from Emerson Park Ridge. But, All right, Kenny, last thing, quick word from Donnie on the Doc Buchanan. He's headed your way, and then he's headed west. Donnie, are you excited?
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. There's about 122 teams that are represented, and it's good to see some different types of wrestling out on the West Coast, a little bit different out there. Officiating could be a little bit different also, and we're anticipating a good tournament. There's some nationally ranked teams there, and a lot of nationally ranked kids.
It'll be
televised. It'll be televised.
I was going to say, are we going to be able to follow along through track wrestling or something else?
Yes, exactly. You can follow along with technology out there on Flow Wrestling.
Good stuff. Next week, we're going to hear all about the Doc Buchanan Tournament. We're going to try to get some guests associated with that. Ryan's going to try to get us some guests, too. So we are moving on. Kenny, what does Donnie call it? Part 2 of the season?
Part 2 of the wrestling season begins this week. The dual meet season, guys. Ready to rock and roll. Mike, who do you got this weekend?
We have Verona on Friday. Will be interesting. Yeah, it'll be interesting with Verona. And then we have a quad on Saturday. But, Verona is going to be a very, very interesting match for us. We match up very, very well with them. They're very similar to us. Every time we wrestled in the last 3 years, it's come down to the last match. So that's what we expect Friday night.
Tommy's got West Milford Friday night and a quad on Saturday. And Ryan, you told me you have the Elizabeth tournament on Saturday. Who'd you have Friday night?
Friday night, Jefferson is coming to North Bergen, and they got a real solid squad, so we'll have a tough one on our hands Friday night.
Right, good luck, everybody.
Yep, we will catch you up on the action next week. We'll see you next week on The Wrestling Show.
Follow the leader.